Welcome back to PTS&Me. This is part 2 of my interview with Talison Bunker. In this episode, she discusses her childhood and the events that led to her having post-traumatic stress. You should be aware in this episode that we are going to discuss childhood sexual trauma and suicide attempts. All right, so welcome back to another episode. This is really a part 2 with Talison Bunker. And the way this came about is after our previous episode, her and I were texting back and forth and chatting just about some other stuff, talking about dark humor and some of the things that we forgot to touch on. And she brought up her sexual abuse when she was a child and how that led into her own form of post-traumatic stress. And Talison, I remember when we were talking, you mentioned something about a soldier that had done something to you, and I didn't touch it because that's unfamiliar ground for me, and I didn't know how you were with that, so I didn't even want to go down that road of like opening up something and it just you not being ready. But you reached out and you're like, no, I can talk about it now, and you wanted to talk about it, so we put your initial interview on hold because I wanted to do this really as like a 2-part. So I appreciate you and your willingness to come on and talk about this. I can't even begin to imagine but I will give the floor to you and just tell me a little bit about what happened, and then we'll just go from there.
So I was raped from 9 to 13 by someone who my dad was very close friends with, went to basic with, really best friends with, he was a brother to him. I'm going to use his name because I'm not going to refer to him as he. His name's Dan. That's all I'm going to say for that part. He also had relations with his daughter and other people and me as well. I was 9 to 13 when it happened. And at the time, I had talked about in the previous episode about the abuse and the alcohol and the anger in the household and the violence. As a child who was going through that, it was a lot harder to go, after it's been, I think, about 11, 12 years now since this happened, since the last time. And I remember going to my parents before I moved out at 17 and saying, hey, this happened to me by this person. And it was kind of like, well, why didn't you tell me? And it was like, well, I couldn't go to the people who were abusing me at the same time, also violent. That was a little scary for me. I didn't know what was going on. He was also telling me hey, don't tell anybody. This is our little secret, this is going to get me in trouble and all that. And I was like, to me, that didn't make any sense. But at the same time, it's I trusted him. I looked at him just as I looked at my dad because, at that time I was a child who was not having a relationship with my parents because they were angry and abusive. And this person was giving me attention. He was grooming me with gifts and candy and things that you would give a child. It's a very strong tactic. They'll get the weakest point and do it. And of course, he did things to my sister too, but he didn't actually have intercourse with her. It was more touching. So I think the only thing that I really remember, I remember a lot of things, but I think one a thing I remember saying to him is don't touch my sister. I do not want that happen to her. I don't. And I had a lot of anger at first whenever, I was a very angry child and very troubled. There's a lot of times that I don't remember my middle school years because I just blocked it out in my memory. And so I was going to get into the abused brain and the healthy brain and what that looks like. And I also want to touch on just not about me, but sexual assault in the service and people who go into the service, like Trevor Beeman in the last episode. That was a very, very strong episode for me to listen to. It was eye-opening for me because he wasn't alone. I wasn't alone. He felt like he was, and I felt like I was. But hearing that, men can get raped too. That's something that I've always believed in. I know someone personal in my life that happened to. And it's a big stigmatism in the Army for someone to open up about that. That is hard for somebody to open up to that because of the dark humor and the jokes. And then of course women get raped in the military, and that's also a big thing. But I had a bunch of research I did, whole paper. I got brain scans of everything: childhood brain, military brain, PTSD, even anxiety, bipolar. There's a lot of stuff into this episode, but the sexual assault was one of the main points. Was just, it was hard because he was a soldier and I did trust him and he was family to us. It hits a whole new part of me, like wanting to do this and help people, just
Right.
be able to be there for them.
I mean, again, I can't, like, I'm just sitting here listening, and that's so much information to unpack. Let's talk about the grooming aspect of it, because we hear, like, today in society, a lot of people, they'll throw out the term grooming, and how in this situation at 9 years old, first of all, I can't even imagine 9 years old. And it was full-blown intercourse. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
It went from 9 to 13. I had gotten, and I know this is like a lot of times when there's a child who's been assaulted, they'll have their period or their cycle early because it breaks. Now, I won't get into the whole like part of the hymen, like the virginity thing, because that's not actually a thing. You don't lose your virginity at all. The hymen can break from anything. Hymen can break, which is the barrier between your cervix and your vaginal wall, like inside your actual vaginal canal. The hymen can break from stress, exercise, sports. I was a very active kid as a kid. It can break at any point. A lot of times you don't have a hymen, and a lot of times you don't bleed during sex because your hymen's already been broken by something. So, but with grooming, I am going to be using RAIN.org and the National Sexual Assault Hotline for this information. So first things first, victim selection. Abusers often observe possible victims and select them based on ease of access. So in my case, my parents were very violent. He knew that. He was really close to my mom and my dad. My dad wasn't perfect. My dad cheated on my mom, and there was a lot of issues, personal issues and things like that, that my parents would come to me and my sister later on in life and say, oh, I'm going to relieve you. You don't go to your child and be their therapist. It's not okay. But I'm not going to get that for either. But a lot of times abusers will go after people who are weak and are in a vulnerable state. And then after that, they'll gain access and isolate the victim. So abusers will attempt to physically or emotionally separate the victim from those protecting them, often seek out positions in which they can contact with minors. When I was a kid, Dan was really close with my dad, and he would like to sleep in me and my sister's bed. At the time, it's like, as a kid, for some reason, that was not registered in the brain. Like, that was not a warning sign. It was like, oh, like the kids really want to sleep with him. It's because he was giving us candy and like giving us attention and being nice. And like, we played with his daughter and we did all these other things. And we slept over at his house or in his bed or whatever. Like, there was times that like it should have been a warning sign, but they were dealing with their own things or they didn't see it in that way. And I know that my mom, whenever I had gone to the police, because I did go to the police, but they couldn't put a time frame in because it was so long. Even though statute of limitations hadn't been reached at that time, they didn't have a time frame to pin it on because of how long it's been. I'm sorry, I'm shaky.
No, you're good. You're good.
So, I remember my mom specifically saying, like, he would ask about me a lot of times and be concerned about my behavior. And it was in a way that wasn't as a, oh, I'm worried about this child misbehaving. Oh, it's like, oh, I'm worried about her doing this. Like, that was his thing or his wife or whatever. He treated me in that way. He had gained a lot of trust in me. So trust and development and keeping secrets. Abusers attempt to gain trust to potential victims through gifts, attention, sharing secrets. A lot of times he would share secrets about his wife. I'm not going to mention that here. That is something that is between them and it's been over. They're not together anymore, but that's not my place to say. Other means to make them feel that they're carrying relationship and to train them to keep a relationship secret. Again, my parents were not in a good place. They yelled a lot. There was a lot of violence. I didn't have anybody to go to. I didn't have a phone at the time, but he came over every weekend. He was there every weekend. He would, he would, he'd sit there and be like, hey, which bed am I sleeping in tonight? He would, like, between me and my sister, because my sister was a kid. She was younger than me. And she was like, well, I want to sleep with him. Like, I want him to sleep with me. It wasn't in that way. Like, at that point, she was just a child who also wanted to be included. She felt jealous. She wasn't getting the attention as well. And so when you start to build trust in that, especially in grooming, like with gifts and stuff, it's hard to get away from that. And even if they come to you and they're like talking about the relationship, you feel important. Or they're including you in things like games, like gaming, because I was bit into World of Warcraft at that point. Candy Crush. I still can't play Candy Crush to this day, and I can't stand it. Feeding the animals, like they had bearded dragons, and they had a dog named Nevaeh, which was heaven. And like he included me in all these things in his life. And at that point, I was like, I'm important. Like, I'm getting all this attention that I'm not getting at home. This is something that I've been wanting, you know, like at that point that your brain's going to train to that. And to one of the brain scans, a PET scan, you have your temporal lobes. So as a child, you have, it's the, on page 2, I think it's the one with the colors below the ADHD and PPD.
Yep. And we'll put this on the website.
Lobes, yeah. So the temporal lobes, this is a PET scan by Borderline PD, WordPress.com. This is a just how attitude changes and stuff. Healthy brain, you see where all that glowing red and yellow is? That's a brain using all of its ability to early childhood. I'm trying to think how to word this because I'm going from my emotional, personal to logical, scientific.
Right.
So temporal lobe, it requires you to like basic activities like playing, social stuff, like social cues, like education, like all of those temporal lobes have an importance in developing at a young age. Well, in an abused brain, even if it's hit, mental, emotional abuse, those, as you can see, those are almost none in working. They're not working. They're not fully developing in the right way. So as you get older, trauma a lot of times will shut down a lot of things, a lot of sensors in your brain. Receptors, chemicals will be low. It just really depends. And sometimes like borderline personality disorder, not only is it a brought on disorder, it can also be carried in the family. And so a lot of times if someone has disorders like bipolar or manic, it tends to be brought on a lot more faster than say someone who isn't in a healthy, who's in a healthy relationship, doesn't have any mental disorders in their family, and something happens to them. Something like that, your emotions are off. Those lobes weren't able to develop fully, and you weren't able to process social cues. You weren't able to process emotions. You were confused. You had a lot of questions to ask. And I'm doing this from a third person's perspective because this is what I went through, and it's what I've seen in a lot of studies with a lot of people who've been assaulted, even men.
Let's
a lot of questions.
Let's do this. Let's focus on you and your story, and then let's get into the science aspect of it. So that way you don't have to mentally jump back and forth. And
that's understandable.
Yeah. Because you're just throwing out a lot of really good information, and it's like I keep coming up with questions, and it's like now I want to take 4 steps back.
Okay. Yeah.
And
okay.
So back to the grooming aspect of it. He would just come over, he'd give you gifts. He saw a void in your life and felt that he could fit into it.
Yeah, but not only did he put trust in me, he put trust in my parents. He also helped them. He also like maintained a decent relationship with them. Like it was something that he had to maintain both relationships to make sure both are being kept separate. And there was turmoil between them. He put a lot of tension between me and my parents. And there was already tension there, but he made it worse.
So as a parent who is very overprotective of my own kids, how old was he when this was taking place?
He was 34.
So he's,
because he was a couple years older than my dad. He was in his 30s.
So
just maybe just began his 30s. Yeah.
So you got a 30-year-old man taking advantage of a 9-year-old girl.
I can see you're getting angry.
It's okay.
No, that's a lot of responses. A lot of rush to emotions is that anger when you find out. So it's understandable.
How, as a parent, how is it okay for a 30-year-old man to sleep in a bed with your child? Now, I could see it from like, hey, we go on a family vacation and beds are limited, and it's like everybody's sleeping everywhere, and it's like Uncle so-and-so is sleeping on the couch, and you have to make stuff happen. But how does a 30-year-old man convince you and your parents that it's okay for him to sleep in bed with you?
That's something that I hold a lot of anger and resentment towards my parents for. They had a lot of parties, so he was considered family. Whenever he was on weekends, it was D&D, which is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a role-play RPG game. Same with Warhammer and some of the other games. There's a lot of people that came over, like my Uncle CJ, and a lot of other people, like people he trusted who were in the service or weren't in the service. And I think the only time that he never slept in bed with me was when one of my good friends was there because of her stepfather being there, which also happened to be a pedophile too. But it was something that a lot of parents will skip by, even if they went through it themselves. They put a lot of trust into they work on the relationship with the parents and the child. And it's one of those, it's easy to sit here in this moment today and be like, well, why did you let a 30-year-old sleep with a 9-year-old? But at that point, he had gained trust not only from my parents and my mother, but to me and to my sister and to even his own daughter. It's something that, I guess the best way to explain it is he can also groom the parents. They can groom the parents, and then they're a week, be a referee in the relationship or give money or give gifts. Like, he always brought fruits and vegetables and a bunch of other nonchalant shit, because, I'm sorry for that language, nonchalant shit that my parents just were like, oh, he's just a nice person. And looking back, his daughter showed a lot of signs of assault and a lot of anger and self-isolation and self-harm. And later on in life, I did self-harm. About 10 years old, I was drinking a lot. I stole a lot of alcohol from my parents' pantry. Self-harm was a very great form at the time for me to get away from what was going on in my life. And seeing that my dad was an alcoholic, I was like, well, he's dealing with his issues that way. You don't think that like that as a kid, that's something that you shouldn't be thinking of. But when you're pushed to not be a child and your childhood's taken away, you tend to look into the adults in your life. And so that's something that happened. And a lot of times, another step for assault for them is to do desensitization to touch and discussion of sexual topics. He often talked about his sex with his wife with me. Again, even though as a child, you shouldn't be feeling, it's natural. It's a biological response, just like Trevor was talking about in the last episode. You didn't understand what you were feeling, even though it was a natural biological response. As a kid, you don't know what that is. There's 9 stages of the development. You're not supposed to feel that stage until you were about in your prepubescent, like when you hit puberty and like teen years. That's when you're supposed to feel those things. That's when you're supposed to discover your genitalia area and all that. Not at 9 years old when you're a kid. Abusers will often start to touch a victim in a way that appears harmless, such as cuddling, wrestling. That was a big thing in my family. I do jujitsu. I love wrestling. I still do it. That didn't get ruined for me, luckily. But tickling and wrestling was how my dad showed affection.
Yeah.
So that's how he used it too. Tickling, wrestling, hugging. And then that would later escalate to sexual contact, such as massages or showers together.
How do you go, and at any point, if I ask a question that's too probing, you don't have to answer it.
No, it's fine.
How do you go from sick son of a bitch anyways, him, because I'm just sitting here thinking, like, before we started, like, I went and told my 2-year-old goodbye and I was tickling him. How do you go from like tickling your child or a child to a shower? And I get it. It's probably over time, and it's that grooming mentality, and it's normalizing everything like you're talking about. Like, how do you even, like, how does that even get brought up? Like, hey.
A lot of times perpetrators, they don't see it the way you do. They don't see it as a parent. They don't see it as a regular adult who looks at a child and thinks, oh, that's a child. They're innocent. They think of it, oh, that's a very attractive. They think of it as like you would see a girl on a street if you were single and looking for somebody. They don't see it in a way that's a child that's innocent. They're just an innocent being. Like, they're not in any way, shape, or form adult. Like, they don't view it in the way as child parent. They view it in the way of child relationship. Like, and I'm not even getting into the whole porn industry thing, because that did not help. Stepdad, whatever, stepdaughter, that did not help. That was a big, huge problem. But it also, like you said, there's grooming involved in that. They, again, will give attention to someone who's weak. And that was me in this case. Sad to say, I was abused as a kid. I didn't have the attention that I wanted. Him giving me that attention and making me feel good turned into that wasn't enough. And so he continued to do more and get closer and do things closer and talk about certain things. At one point, he drugged me, because at one point I was getting to the point where I was getting tired of it and I didn't want to. I still can't drink grapefruit juice anymore, because it just can't. I can't. And then after about that, they introduced pornography, topics about sexual stuff, and sexual contact. It started, and I know I want to say this is going to be really graphic. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but it started with breast touching. Started with touching my breast, and then my body, and then down there, and then fingering, and then eating out. It was something that it started very little until it got to the point of him actually doing it, because that's what he wanted. And this continued for a long time. And so a lot of times after that, they'll make it seem natural. So to avoid raising suspicions, for teens, it may be close for nature behavior. It's particularly hard to recognize tactics used in grooming, but be alert for signs that your child has a relationship with an adult that includes secrecy, undue influences or control, or pushes personal boundaries. Grooming behaviors are not only used to gain victims' trust, but often are used to create a trustworthy image in a relationship with family and community. So even if the family doesn't see it, it can also go into not just your family, but people around that child. Child and teen sexual abusers are often charming, kind, and helpful. Exactly the type of behavior we value in friends and acquaintances. You don't need to be suspicious of everyone who is kind to your child, most who are well-intentioned and trustworthy, but you should be on guard with this type of behavior. But sometimes it's a mirage and a way for an abuser to gain trust, so they have more direct access to your child. You should also talk to your kids about risk and boundaries. One thing to avoid this is to talk to your child. talk to them, even though that you should, in this world, you shouldn't have to go talk to them about this in no way, shape, or form. But in this day and age, you have to.
Okay, I'm going to ask two questions. What is, if you could put a red flag that sticks out the most for a parent of like, hey, if someone is grooming your child, this is the red flag. This is what you should be looking for in the individual or within your kids.
So for me, it was gas station candy, drinks, stuff like that. Biggest red flag. The biggest one is like, I'm sorry. I think one of the ones that I can say for me personally and what I've seen is gifting, like excessive gifting to one specific child, or asking about that child. Not in the way is this child okay, like excessively looking at them and saying, hey, like, well, this behavior is not okay, like treating them like a girlfriend and not a child. That is another thing. Providing alcohol to the child, providing drugs to the child. Those are big signs. Like providing an excessive amount of attention to this one child is a big sign. Complimenting is also a big thing. Oh, you're so adorable. You're beautiful. Oh, your child looks good. Like not in the aspect of like a person who's like, oh my God, your child's so cute in that dress. I'm talking about like your child looks like they know by the first name basis, like she looks really beautiful or she's really attractive, or they I'm sorry, I'm stuttering because it's really hard.
No, you're good. So what I'm gathering is that it's almost like they're treating you like a girlfriend. So when I was dating my wife, like I would get her flowers, I would get her gifts, I would tell her how pretty she was. I would do all of these things because I was trying to express how much I liked her. And so
yeah,
it's basically the same thing from an adult to a child. And again, you're not conflating the two where it's like, here, I got a gift for all your kids. I just came from out of town. Here's this. Hey, you have beautiful kids, but where it becomes that constant complimenting and constant gift giving. Did I capture that?
Mm-hmm. There's also verbal seduction, which is flattery and ego stroking. That's a very common one, especially for older victims of assault. So teens. A teenager has a lot more emotions. They understand what they're going through. They understand the feeling of sex. That's a little different, but they're going through a whole bunch of emotions in their mind. I just finished my course for it's been 2 weeks now, but I finished the course for teens. Oh my, let me tell you, the brain and the chemicals that produce as a teenager are insane. Your brain does not stop as a female until you're 25, and men mature at 25 and women mature at 22, but your brain doesn't stop developing things until 25. There's a lot of secrecy. Be careful of secrecy. That's the biggest thing. Secrecy is like, you'll ask them how the night went, and they're like, oh, it went well. And you ask more questions, and they're like, oh, it's fine. They're keeping things, and they're keeping the child from you, keeping the relationship with your child from you. Notice there's also physical, emotional signs in the child, not just the groomer, like anger, a lot of anger and confusion and outbursts of behavior. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, this child's trying to take a toy and they're throwing a tantrum. I'm talking about like physical signs of I'm not getting the attention, so I'm going to do things that I shouldn't. And showing a lot of aggression and a lot of emotion. Like too much emotion as a child is not okay. There's a lot of times that I had a lot of emotion and I remember them, but I also don't remember some of my other emotional states. I had a lot of anger and a lot of depression as a child. So a lot of things are blurry to me.
I get that. Yeah. I've just known some other people that have had a similar experience, and it's that blurriness of your brain is almost like it's trying to protect you, and so it's not allowing you to remember those memories.
And one of the biggest, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
With Trevor, he was talking about it. When you sit here and you shut those things off, when you actually sit there and talk about it with somebody or do what he was doing, like the meditation, ketamine stuff, it makes sense to you in that moment. Like, oh my gosh, connecting all those memories, you're going to get flashbacks and it's going to suck. You're going to dissociate. You're going to panic. You're going to think you're there. There's times where, like, I was going to talk about hypersexuality and sexuality when it comes to, like, not even wanting to do it at that point in your life. I'm a hypersexual person because of what happened to me. And I remember when I first, like, in a relationship with somebody, I tried everything to give them attention because it ruins your relationship with people. You think sex is love because that's what you were taught. That's what you were groomed into. And at 9 years old, that's impressionable. That's something that can stay with you for the rest of your life until it gets fixed. And that's what happened to me. I thought sex was love, and that if I didn't give it, I was nothing. So it sucks, but I remember a lot of times I had a lot of moments where I was like, hey, stop, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not here. I'm not physically in this moment. I am somewhere else. So.
Can it go either way where it's either very sexual in nature because you're trying to chase that feeling, or can it also go to where there's like a lack of interest whatsoever?
So yes, you put it just the right way. You're chasing that feeling that you got when you were a child. You're chasing that adrenaline, that adrenaline rush, that those chemicals being released in your body was natural for you, but you want that again. So you keep finding it. You keep trying to find it. You keep doing it over and over and over again. With someone personal in my life, no interest at all. Doesn't have any interest in it at all. And in reality, it's very, like, he doesn't have the drive or the energy to do it. He just doesn't have any interest in doing it because of what happened. Now, he may want stuff done to him, but he doesn't want to actively do anything. So it's something that it depends on the person, depends on how you come out. Like, I know someone who had no interest in it at all, like no touching, no nothing, to someone who practically would bend over backwards just to get it. And it depends on how your brain processes that trauma and how your body will react to something like that. Like, if you remember everything, a lot of times you don't want to. But if you don't remember a lot of stuff and you remember some things, you're hypersexual. I've noticed that. Like, if you don't remember a lot of things, it's like, okay, I want that feeling that I got, but I don't understand why I want that feeling. And then you have some people who are like, oh my gosh, why did this happen to me? And no interest in it at all. And in fact, we will go to the opposite gender because they don't like men. So that happens a lot too.
Can it be resolved with like therapy and other, like you brought up the ketamine therapy again, that Trevor did, and he got better. It is doing everything that he was able to, the programs he was able to get into and fix him, for lack of a better term that I'm making up as I'm talking. But he was talking about how it reconnects parts of the brain that the trauma has, kind of killed. Are there ways and therapies that you can get better when you have these things, or are you just kind of stuck with it for the rest of your life and you just learn to process and deal with it?
I started therapy 4 years ago today, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was medicated for the first year, maybe half a year, beginning of that. Medication didn't work for me because my body overproduces a lot of chemicals. So I have borderline personality disorder and manic depressive disorder, which is another form of bipolar disorder. Manic depressive disorder is where you feel every freaking emotion in 8 hours. And borderline personality disorder is the same way, but it's in a more broad spectrum. And you have abandonment issues and you have anxiety. And a lot of times it's coupled with OCD and PTSD. My OCD is I feel clean enough and nothing's ever clean. I explained in the last episode, part one, that my OCD also comes from me being told I did everything half-assed, that I didn't clean something enough. Like, I remember the times that I was sitting in my front door because I had to strip paint off my door and I got clean on the floor. I sat there and bawled my eyes out while scrubbing the floor. My boyfriend was sitting on the piano bench. It was intense because I was not in that moment. I was somewhere else where I was being yelled at by my father. Like, my OCD comes from me not feeling clean enough because of what happened to me. I remember my first time where I was trying, like, my first year in therapy, I took a shower and I was challenged to take a shower in 10 minutes. I sat there for 2 hours scrubbing my body because I was going through the things in my head. And it's going to be hard when you first go through it. It's so difficult to go through what your brain blocked off for many years. I still have flashbacks to points in my life where I don't remember, and I have to go through it. I know how to ground myself now. I know, just like PTSD moments in soldiers, you ground yourself. You have to do the five senses: sight, smell, touch, anything. You have to ground yourself in the current situation and go through it. And talking about it, and meditation for me, and also the gym and jujitsu. Learning how to defend myself has helped me be more confident. Me getting my concealed carry, more confident. Me working out, like, seeing that I'm strong now, and knowing that I'm strong, I'm healing myself. And it's something that you're going to live with the rest of your life. It happened to you. But about 90% of the 96% of the women population has been assaulted. And in statistics, that's 1 in 3 and 4 women, and then 1 in 5 men get raped as a child. I think that's in one of my articles that I have in this big giant pile of documents.
I remember reading that. Yeah.
So one of the treatments that I went through was CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. This is a structured, goal-oriented type of therapy. Your therapist or psychologist helps you take a close look in your thoughts and emotions. You come to understand how your thoughts affect your actions. Through CBT, you can unlearn negative thoughts and behaviors and learn to adopt healthier patterns and habits. This is something that helped me in learning what some of my behaviors were toxic and what behaviors weren't. And then there's dialectical behavior therapy. This type of therapy was developed specifically for people with BPD. DBT focuses on helping you accept the reality of your life and your behaviors, as well as helping you learn to change your life, including unhelpful behaviors and teaching skills so you control intense emotions and reduce self-destructive behaviors and improve relationships. That is something that I'm going through right now, but incorporating it to meditation. So I have slowly learned my borderline personality disorder, even though it affects me every day and I hate that I have it, but it's something that I've learned to focus on, like, behaviors that are toxic, and work on them.
So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and dialectical, if I could read, behavior therapy, DPT. Talk about both of those, and, like, what are you doing as part of that therapy?
Okay. So I'm going to get into the signs and symptoms of borderline personality disorder to better understand what those treatments do. So borderline personality disorder has fear of abandonment, unstable, intense relationships, unstable self-image or sense of self, rapid mood changes, impulsive and dangerous behavior, repeated self-harm or suicidal behavior. I was very suicidal. Repeated self-harm, persistent feelings of emptiness, anger management issues. I'm a very angry person. Temporary paranoid thoughts. Dissociative episodes are what are those called. Paranoid thoughts, hallucinations by stress, usually fear of abandonment. These symptoms are temporary, usually not severe enough to consider a separate disorder. So what causes borderline personality disorder? Child abuse and trauma. About 70% of people with BPD have experienced sexual, emotional, or physical abuse as a child. Maternal separation, poor maternal attachment, inappropriate family boundaries, and parental substance abuse use disorder, and also associated with BPD. Genetics disorder runs in the family. Brain changes. People with BPD, the parts of their brain that control emotion behavior don't communicate properly. These problems affect the way their brain works. You have to be diagnosed by a professional. So this is something that you have to be diagnosed with. BPD is treated by challenges to treat, but with newer evidence based on treatment, many who with borderline personality disorder experience fewer and less severe symptoms and improving their quality of life. Talk therapy, psychotherapy, which is called talk therapy, medications, or both. Your healthcare provider may recommend a short-term hospital stay if you're very distressed or risk harming yourself or others. People with borderline personality disorder have other mental health conditions. So anxiety, substance use, eating disorders, bipolar, somatoform disorders, mood disorders. Psychotherapy is dialectical, which is the type of therapy specifically for BPD, BPD. Group therapy is another one. This is a psychotherapy in which groups of people meet to discuss their problems together under supervision of a therapist. Group therapy may help people with BPD to understand those more positively and expresses themselves effectively. This is a way to, if you're like severely bad, like I'm not as bad as like as some other people. Group therapy a lot of times is commonly used for people who have severe social issues and maintaining relationships. I have issues maintaining relationships with women. I don't know why. I never understood why, and maybe because of how like abrasive and like blunt I am. But my best friend's a guy, and it's probably because I can just get along with them better or whatever. So I am gonna go to where I have the treatment because I'm wanting to back up my talking. So the 6 main points in dialectical behavior therapy is the acceptance of the situation. Your acceptance in like you're accepting what you have at this point. You're trying to accept that your relationships are failing. You're accepting that you have toxic behavior that needs to fix. Like I had to accept that I was being an asshole boyfriend in the first year of my relationship with him. It's something that I had to establish. You have to change your oriented strategy. So in this case, you have to change what your brain has already just immediately gone to with your emotions. You have to regulate your emotions with, rather than a PTSD attack, your anxiety attacks. You have to regulate all of your emotions. So if you're angry, try and establish, hey, I need to cool down, and then talk about it. Like, why did this make me angry? What is going on? Even if you don't know, talk about it. Same with sadness, happiness. Like I get manic at times where I'm like extremely freaking happy all the time. But that's another way of doing it. Distress tolerance. This is something that you are going to have to put yourself in a stressful situation and see how far you can go without freaking out. This is the exposure therapy, basically. This is where you expose yourself into a stressful situation to where you can then establish, what can I do to make this better? That's another way. And interpersonal effectiveness. Interpersonal communication, which I love that class. I absolutely loved it when I was in college in that semester. Interpersonal communication was a great class, but it helped me learn. Like getting education while with these disorders has helped me learn a lot more than just being in therapy. So, and my therapist even says that you going to therapy will help you learn yourself and communicate with yourself better. Interpersonal effectiveness, this is where you are talking to yourself, how you view yourself, what you think about, how you think of others, what you think of others, like what people think of you, like you establishing a healthy way to talk to yourself rather than bringing yourself down. That is dialectical behavior, cognitive behavior therapy is something that I did. My first therapist, I've had 2 therapists. My first therapist actually went to cancer. She went to the cancer ward to do her therapy. So I ended up going to another therapist who is amazing. I love Amber. She's awesome. There's 5 steps in CBT. So you make a list. record on productive thoughts, create replacement thoughts, read your list often, notice and replace. In this case, with CBT, you are writing down your flaws. You are writing down things that you think about that are negative. Talking about it, making replacement good thoughts, like good memories, like replacing a bad memory with a good one. It's just like in this case, you're replacing a bad thought with a good one, or a bad memory with a good one. And then reading it often, like my inner child, was an abused child, so I have to be like, I'm beautiful. Like my self-esteem issues because of my disorder, I'm beautiful, I am strong, I'm confident. Like I have to make those things and look at them and constantly reflect on those. And if I have to change one, I'll change it. So basically you're changing how you treat yourself. And journaling is a godsend for me. I journal everything because if you just keep that in your head, even if you don't want to talk to somebody, journal it down, write it down, bam. Journaling helps a lot.
So you just write everything? Because I've heard
I
journaling is good,
have,
but it's not like Dear Diary today.
no.
It's you just write down whatever you feel like talking about.
I do it in a way where I'm addressing myself and addressing my therapist. You can address it to whoever you want to be. You can address it to God. You can address it to a cat. You can address it to a dog. You can address it to a horse. You can address it to the person you're talking to in your life. You can address it to anybody as long as you write it down. I have 3 journals and working on another one. I have a lot of journals because I've written so much.
That's a good thing to have. It means you're working through everything.
And then you can also go back to those journals, read those, and replace words and look at that and be like, I moved a long way from where I am now. That's a good way to look at it.
I think too with the journaling, because everybody learns different, and it's like the positive reinforcement of replacing the negative thoughts with the positive ones. You know, I can sit here and say, I tell myself like, hey, you're not depressed. You're actually very happy, to try and get yourself out of that. But I think writing it down too, putting that pen to paper, also reinforces it.
Yeah. I did take medication, and I recommend medication for some people, but it didn't work for me. And you can also not want to do medication and do talk therapy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say with every guest, like it's a combination of what works for you. And you just have to try things out and see what works and what doesn't. But you have to be willing to, go through the suck part of it. I want to go back a little bit. How did it end with Dan? How did that resolve?
At age 13, my dad had decided to retire after 20 years. This was in 2014, and I broke up with my boyfriend of 2 years at that time because I was dating somebody, which that was confusing in itself. But I wouldn't even consider it a relationship. It was kind of just like you're just discovering, you know how like you're a child and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm dating this person. The next year they're broken up. That's how it was. But we had dated for like 2 years successfully for some reason. But I had broken up with him because I had conflicting emotions, and I was like, I just want to get away from all of this. And at 13.
So was Dan still taking advantage of you while you had a boyfriend?
Yeah. Okay. He knew I was in a relationship. I mean, he was married, but he knew I was in a relationship with somebody. I remember one conversation that me and him had. He was like, well, I don't want to keep doing this to my wife. I don't want to keep cheating on her. We have to stop this. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, we. At this point, looking back, I was like, we? What do you mean we? You're the one doing it to me.
Yeah, right.
But it was like, we have to stop doing this. I don't want to hurt my wife. And it was just like, it was weird. And then he just, 2 weeks later, he continued doing it. But anyway, at 13, my dad and my mom and me and my sister all moved away to where I live now. Not in this house, but in a house we lived in the county. Because I live in Montgomery County. So we moved all the way from Cameron, North Carolina, all the way down here to Montgomery County. Moved into a house that my dad and my mom were happy to build and do all that. And that's when it stopped. He texted me at my sophomore year in high school. I discussed in the beginning of the episode where he asked me to look between me and him because he was going through a whole case with a 16-year-old. So yeah, that's when it stopped.
And so you brought up that text. I know what it said. Tell everybody else what he was asking of you.
So he asked me if what we did was consensual and between us and was our secret because he was going through a statutory rape charge on a 16-year-old. And it was weird. And at that time, my parents liked to look through my shit, which I fucking hated, but it was something that was, well, why did Dan text you? I was like, what do you mean? Why did Dan text me? He just texted me. And they didn't know at the point. They didn't know at that was like, I was 15, maybe 15 when he texted me. But it was like, why did he text you? And they told me what happened. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't tell him at that point what happened to me because I didn't want to because they were still mean and assholes to me. But I love my parents. I'm not bashing my parents at all, but they had a lot of issues and they still have a lot of issues. But it was like he had the audacity to come back and text me to cover his ass.
And especially to do this was consensual. How is it consensual between a 9-year-old and a 30-year-old? How is that consensual?
To him, in his mind, since he grew me and I was free will into doing it, that was something that he established in his mind that was consensual. But back to the ego stroking thing, I remember it just popped in my head a memory of it, where he would be like, "Oh, you're so beautiful." Like in private, he would like be like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. You're beautiful. You're doing a great job." And I'm not going to go into detail what that was about, but that's ego stroking. You may not see it, but it happens.
You said at certain times in your life you were suicidal because of all of this. Are you able
Yeah,
to?
about 13-year-old. Yeah, I attempted 4 times in my life. My first time I was 14. I had just been raped by my boyfriend at the time, a mile down from my house in Montgomery County. I'm not going to say his name, but he went to basic and failed. But whatever. uh, he was the one who cheated on me with his ex-girlfriends. I was 13 and he raped me when I had just turned 14. And oh, what did you ask? I'm so sorry. My mind just went blank.
I was just asking about your suicide attempts.
My suicidal thought. Okay, yeah. At that point, I really wanted to kill myself. I got into weed. I drank. And I tried drowning myself in my bathtub. I bawled my eyes out because I came back up. And I was like, why can I not kill myself? This is disappointing. Like, why can't I do it? Why can I not do it? I did self-harm a little bit, but most of the time I just drank and did a lot of party shit because I was stupid and putting myself in situations that I shouldn't have. My second time was when I was 16 and I was raped by 2 guys at a track practice at my high school. My boyfriend thought I cheated on him because a rumor went around school that I had sex with 2 guys. And I really wanted to kill myself. I gave myself alcohol poisoning at that time. And at that point, there was another pedophile that my sister's friend had allowed giving drinks. Like this was a case of like he was giving alcohol to his stepdaughter and to my sister and to me. I got blacked out drunk and almost died. I tried killing myself with a bottle of Jack. I still can't drink Jack Daniels to this day. But I haven't drank in 2 years now. It's been 2 years since I've drank last. So I'm proud of myself for that because I had relapsed at one point. about 2 years ago. My third time was a little bit closer to that time frame. I was 17 and I had just gotten with a soldier, and I was raped by 2 soldiers on base. And I tried killing myself in my car. I tried running in my car into a tree. And then I hydroplaned because I was going really fast on a dirt road. I can't remember the name of the road, but it was a dirt road in Merch. It was like on one of the gates in the back, like you're going through Vass and you go through that back gate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dirt road that you take to get to that cut. That's where I almost wrecked, because that bridge, that like tiny little bridge you go over, I hydroplaned and freaked out, and I got out of my car and cried to the moon. My last time was before I started dating my boyfriend, and I took 3 Percocet and tried killing myself because I had just moved out and my parents made me feel like a piece of shit. I was going through what happened to me. My boyfriend in the Army told me he didn't want me anymore, and then I broke up with him. And I was going through a lot of emotions at the time, and I didn't know what was going on with me. And then what happened to me is my rape with Dan. And then everything else that led up to it, I was done with life. I didn't want to be here anymore. And I said, fuck this shit, I'm done. And so I took 3 Percocet because I had painful kidney stones. And at that point, before the opioid pandemic here, they had just given you painkillers. It was something that was just given to you.
Yeah.
So that was the last time I tried killing myself. Of course, there's a lot more times where I had suicidal ideation, but I didn't attempt. A lot of times I wish I was dead. I drank, I did drugs. I didn't do hardcore drugs. I just did weed, but still a drug.
So I'm going to ask a question, because the whole part of this podcast is to help everybody else with understanding everything, with PTSD and everything else that goes along with it. But as part of that is, like, I don't know the proper way to respond right now of finding out that you were raped multiple other times and tried to kill yourself. I know now you're in a much better place and you're able to talk about it. And I see that you're very happy and excited and thriving as a young woman. This is just sheer ignorance. What should my response be when I'm talking with somebody and I find this out? And because first thing I want to do is, like, my heart breaks for you, but like it's breaking for like the younger version of you. So, like, educate me, if you will, on what are you? I'm sorry, I'm just kind of at a loss because I got a little bit of emotions running through me right now.
It's okay.
As someone who's now been exposed to someone with your past, like, what's the right response to tell someone where you don't invoke hurt or lack of empathy or something? Because, like, I just want to be like, God, I'm so sorry. And, like, I feel like I have failed you. Like, it's like, you know, you put that on yourself because it's like, I mean, that is a hard upbringing. But, like, how do I even respond to you? Or how would someone else respond to someone else when they find out?
So I'm dissociating right now, but I'm still able to talk. When someone goes through something like that, don't say, I'm so sorry that I failed you. No, I'm not mad about it. Because they don't want you to feel bad for them, because they're in a spot where, like, they're strong. They got through it. Like, oh my gosh, like, just say, like, it's okay to say sorry, because you're going to feel bad. Like, it's just like if a child comes to you like, hey, I hurt my finger. Well, I'm sorry you hurt your finger. He's a Band-Aid. Like, it's in that sense, like, don't put the blame on yourself. A lot of times when you're shift blaming or shift victim blaming or whatever, that's a lot of times what people do is they'll, like, be like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I wish I was there. It's like, just know that they did go through that. That did happen to them. And if they share that with you, just know you're a trusted person in their life. They really trust. Don't treat them any different as if it was another person who didn't go through that. Treat them like a normal human being. They went through something traumatic, but also know their triggers. Also be there for them if they if they have PTSD attacks or whatever, like that's a big thing. So that's something that you can do in addressing that. Like, even if they talk about it with you, like, hey, like, you're listening and be like, hey, I'm sorry that happened to you. Just know that I'm here for you if you ever need a situation. Like, you're going through something in your mind. Like, I'm here.
Do you think people need to be cognizant of where other individuals are in their process? So, like, I would imagine right now, like, if you and I are just having a conversation that's not on a podcast, like, I could ask you questions about it and you're not fragile, but
No,
other people may still feel a little raw and stuff. So, like, I guess don't be afraid to have the conversations with people. Like, if you and I were to go out and I was going to say grab drinks, but you're sober. You and I were to go out and grab a cup of coffee and
have lunch.
have
Yeah,
lunch or whatever. And it's like, I shouldn't be afraid to just ask you, like, hey, how's everything going? Like, are you okay? Like, where are you at in the process? Would that be acceptable?
that is a great way to go about it, because you don't know where they are in their progress. I can sit here and go into detail of everything that happened to me, like straight detail, because I'm able to go through it and talk about it, and it's healing for me. But bringing awareness to it has also given me a whole new platform. Like, hey, this fucking happened to me. This fucking happened to you too. Let's fucking sit here and go through it together. Let's sit here and make sure people aren't alone in this, because I'm looking at my statistics and stuff. Studies show that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men were assaulted before the age of 18. And this means there are more than 42 million adult survivors of child sexual abuse. And the primary reason the public is not sufficiently aware of child sexual abuse as a problem is that 73% of victims do not tell anyone about the abuse for at least a year. And 45% of victims do not tell anyone for at least 5 years, and some never disclose. That is a big issue. People don't talk about it. People don't want to talk about it, especially if they came from an abusive family, domestic violence. It's hard. It's hard to go to somebody. It's even hard to go to your own parents because you want that. So knowing what sitting there and talking, like how you addressed it, is like, hey, how are you doing? How is your progress going? That's a great way to go about it. And say, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Say, yeah, I want to talk about it. Be prepared that it's going to hurt. You're going to get emotional. And you can feel bad for them and say sorry and all that, but don't take away that attention from them. Allow them to go through it and then talk about it and just address it. Like, how does that make, like, don't say, how does it make you feel, but like I'm here for you. Like, what were you going through? What's been going on? Like, just talking about it more and addressing those issues. Same with anybody in the service who's been raped. You're not alone. And I know that I'm addressing the general and not just Brandon right now. If you are going through that and experiencing this, you are not alone, and don't blame yourself. Don't self-blame, and especially for the women and the men, because men, don't get me wrong, you can be raped too. And I know that it's much harder for you guys to report than women. It's a big problem, and don't self-blame. Just know that, like, you're not alone, and there's someone out there like this podcast, me. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Brandon. He can help, and I can help, and other people can help too, because I know what the struggle is to go through. I've seen the channels you guys have to go through. I've seen the channels what I have to go through. It's hard. So I'm gonna get emotional. Ah.
I mean, this is an emotional topic, so you're perfectly fine. I think I'll ask this, but I think this is a good place to kind of stop, because it's like you just wrapped it up and you just gave the go get help, go tell somebody, reach out for help. But is there anything else that you want to talk about or share or make aware?
Go get help. To be honest, the stigmatism in the army, like dark humor, where I know we're gonna have a whole episode on that. It's a good way to go about, like, trying to, like, go through it, because I have dark humor about my rape. Like, I am dark with it sometimes. Go get help. Talk to somebody. Even if you go to someone like you really trust and you really are close with, go talk to them. Take them with you and be like, hey, this is my support person. This is who I want. Like, my friend Cheyenne, she's in the Army. She was raped in Korea. She went through the whole channels. She was alone. She went through it, and she had me at the end. She got therapy. She got help. Now she has a baby girl of her own, and she's happy. Like, go get help. It's okay. Go to somebody. Be friends with somebody. Like, just know that you're not alone. And I know that everybody says that. Every single person, oh, you're not alone. Oh, don't be afraid to go out. And the typical, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, go get help. It's okay to be vulnerable. Just like what Trevor was talking about. In those moments you're alone and you recognize that, know that someone else will recognize that too. Don't blame yourself. Go get help. Even if it's just coming to me. If you just want to vent to me, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to school for this stuff. I am willing to help people, and I guess I have a better understanding as someone who hadn't been through it. So just go get help. It's okay.
Well, everyone, you heard her. It's okay. Ask for help. Reach out. Talison, thank you so much for coming on and just being so open and vulnerable. And I can still tell that, the audience that's listening doesn't get to see you, but I can see that when you're talking about stuff, you'll switch into I got to talk about the science behind of it as a way of like kind of maintaining your composure. And I can see your demeanor change when you do it. But it takes a very brave and special person to be able to just share your experience with the world.
Yeah. Now I get to go roll jujitsu today.
There you go.
Get to roll all that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. This was PTS and Me.